Meeting to order. Okay, so welcome everyone, and happy end of Thanksgiving, whether you had a guinea pig or not, I don't know. First on the budget is approval of the September 2023 minutes. Do you have any comments, or then the minutes stand approved as they are? Okay, great. Look how fast we're getting through this agenda, isn't that great? The budget timeline document review. So my little text boxes with arrows, and do we want to look at that on the shared screen, or and see how everybody feels about it, if there are any changes?
Yes,
That would be good, because I couldn't get into my county email this afternoon.
Okay, can everyone see the document?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yes.
This is the track change version. I'm sorry, I didn't save it and change it, but this is the track change version from the original document that you all were looking at.
Okay.
And I know I had printed it out and looked at it, and I was fine. Oh, and in the spring, the third quarter review process identifies surplus funds to be allocated to priority projects and programs, I think is all that means.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the subject matter is great. Fran, I'm also challenged in terms of doing things like making this look nicer. So I don't have anything to offer from that on that front, but maybe somebody who is a little more technically capable could, because it feels like there's just lots of stuff, and I feel like it could look better and flow better if somebody had that capability to do that, which I don't.
I agree, and I don't.
And isn't there a date in May, not mid-May? There's a date the budget has to be approved by?
I don't think so. It's usually the middle of May, but
Isn't
double check.
Somehow I had May 5th in my head.
And I was sort of thinking that if we like this, it could be left without specific dates for use in other years, is sort of what I was thinking. I felt proud of myself for finding those arrows, but
So Fran, if you would like, I could certainly, staff can't advocate, but this is just an informational document. So I feel comfortable asking staff if they could kind of zhuzh it up if you all would like.
I would love that.
Sure.
That would be great. Yeah.
You show it the whole document again.
Sure.
Let's see that the current budget was adopted on May 9th, 2023.
Okay.
I don't know if that means it's always adopted on that same date, but
Yeah, I'd have to go back because all the sites that are popping out right now are for the Virginia state governments, not like localities. But the county does create an annual timeline document that speaks to, when they're going to approve the budget. Usually it's during their first May full board meeting.
Okay.
It's usually the first or second Tuesday in the month. I don't know that it's tied to a specific date. But again, I'd be happy to follow up.
What would sometime in May be a better expression, or is that too vague? Because the 9th is not, that's earlier than May.
Well, we could just say in May.
I'm now seeing that for FY25, the board marks up the budget on May 7th. and they adopt the budget on May 9th. And then the school board adopts their budget on May 23rd, and then the budget year begins on July 1st.
Well, for now, if you'd like, I can keep it just at in May. The Board of Supervisors formally adopts the budget, and then if it is consistently May 9th, I will add the 9 in there as well before I pass it over to staff to kind of make it more visual.
In the previous box, then you need to change the title.
Yeah,
Got it.
and if they did it as earlier in May, maybe it shouldn't say from late April, because if people want to
Mhm.
send in a comment, that would be too late. Maybe just.
I think the best thing to do would be to use the dates for this budget year once we have them. Because if people are reading it, they might mark on their calendar, I have to do it by this date or something. And that would be easy enough to change from year to year, wouldn't it? The
Yeah.
adoption date and the
Yeah,
hearing dates.
yeah,
I just put a link in the chat that, I mean, these are the budget process timeline
Okay,
for this year. And it's May
thank
9th.
you.
Okay. We
I
will
was
add in
wondering if
specific dates.
the title should be county budget timeline and rather than how the budget is prepared. Just kind of the county budget timeline might be more specific and less informal.
You know, Fran, I was just, that's why I sort of asked Jessica to make it to see the whole thing, because I was wondering if I'd missed something, because it really is a timeline more than, and I don't know really how the budget is, I don't really understand that process. I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn something, and it's actually a
Right, and
timeline.
we don't go into that. It's because it's it's
Yeah.
making sausage, as they say about legislation.
If
And
there-
then if you do that with the fiscal year, that's great. That would be great and make it, yeah.
Yeah, so I put fiscal year 25 up on the top there. And if we do that, then I'll put a little note in here somewhere as well about what the fiscal year 25 timeline is, because, some folks that are part of your advocate group might not know. And Sujatha, to your comments about not kind of knowing how the budget is actually prepared, the county has a really nice 3.5-minute long graphic video that talks about the different steps in the process, and it's like little cartoon figures. They're like, this is how budget is drafted. It's kind of like the old,
Like the old bill, like.
Yeah.
How a bill becomes a law.
exactly,
Oh.
I'm just a,
Yeah.
yeah, that one. So there's no
Yeah.
music.
Now all of us
It's
are
not
singing in our mind. Don't even act
Yeah.
like you're not. You're singing.
It's
it in
not
your mind.
quite as exciting as that, but it's a very helpful video. I could find it quickly.
Oh, I would love it.
Watch
Thank
as
you.
well. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the link is on the website that I sent. It's at the very bottom, right?
Okay.
Watch how our budget is built.
I see.
That may be what you're.
See.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a sec, and I will pull that up because it's not letting me do that on the same page. And I have to share again.
I'm just a bill.
Oh, that's not only- yeah.
Okay, so if we go
I see it.
down,
I see it. Yeah. Oh, we get to watch?
Starts with an ad, yeah.
I know, sorry.
Got me just weird. And at first, I thought it was kind of crazy.
There you go. Look, it's our old chairman.
There she is.
When developing and passing the budget, the board of supervisors work hard.
The Fairfax County budget supports local purposes such as schools, public safety, parks, libraries, and more for over 1.1 million county residents. The county's general fund budget is about $4 billion.
Can you turn the sound up?
Absolutely.
Well, I was just gonna get my.
Thank you.
Budget every year. Work on the county budget is a year-round process. It begins in the fall when the county.
How's that?
And school
A
superintendent.
little better.
The budget forecast. The county executive.
Better.
Predicts what the local economy, housing market, and tax revenues may look like for the upcoming fiscal year. The superintendent of Fairfax County Public Schools also shares a budget forecast outlining how student enrollment and other factors may affect the upcoming school budget. Both forecasts help set the stage and manage expectations for what lies ahead. In early winter, the superintendent proposes a school budget for the upcoming fiscal year. The school board can make changes to this budget request or not. The proposal represents the amount of money the school system is requesting in a transfer of funds from the county. In February, the county executive releases a draft budget for the Board of Supervisors and the community to consider. This is called the county executive's advertised budget for general county services and the school transfer. Next, the Board of Supervisors proposes an advertised tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. This advertised rate becomes the ceiling for how high the tax rate could be increased. The tax rate that is eventually adopted can be the same as or lower than what was advertised, but not higher. With the advertised tax rate, the county executive's advertised budget, and the requested budget from the school system all on the table, the Board of Supervisors invites residents to offer feedback and suggestions. The Board of Supervisors listens to residents at budget public hearings, community meetings held throughout the county, and through emails, letters, phone calls, and social media. In April, based on extensive engagement from the community, the Board of Supervisors makes changes to the county executive's advertised budget. Editing process is called budget markup. The Board of Supervisors must formally adopt the final tax rate and a final budget by May 15th
There you
of
go,
each year.
May 15th.
The adopted tax rate and adopted
By
budget
May 15th, okay.
on July 1st, the first day of the new fiscal year.
For more information on the Fairfax County budget,
They need to do some updating there,
Maybe just a little bit.
like a woman superintendent and remove Sharon Bulova and
Yeah.
the ink pens they're using.
They just
Yeah.
move like this.
I love the hands.
Yes, so when this was published in 6 years ago, so 2017, you know, Sharon Bulova was still the chairman.
Right.
Dr. Braybrand was here, and I think it was Brian at that point. So they were all little characters of our folks that were participating in them. But that is the county's current quick guide on video guide on how the budget is. So I will, if you all would like, I will update the draft fiscal year 2025 budget timeline documents. I will put in the dates that are appropriate for this year, as well as May 15th being the final date that a budget has to be approved.
Perfect.
Or whatever the date is that the board of supervisors have on their calendar, and then I will pass it along to library marketing to see if they can take this informational document and provide some options back to you all for graphics.
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as far as the document's gonna, for using it, we have already sent out this information in a plain, memo.
Or Matt,
Yeah, and so, I think this, we can still use it if we get new advocates, and then I think and I wanna hear what you have to think, that also when we, send our message of advocacy now, this could go with that, or should it go sooner? So what do you feel? What do you think?
I
Committee.
think after the holidays or around the time that the budget is announced is probably more reasonable. Nobody's going to pay attention to it between now and the end of the year, I don't think.
I agree.
Okay.
Hit them fresh in maybe early February. Or maybe right after the new board is sworn in. That might be a good time.
That's a good idea.
Reminding people of who their new board member is if it's changed.
Okay, so that's next week, right? Yeah.
No, it's the new
Oh, it's the
board
week
takes
after
over
that. Yeah, it's the
July,
13th.
January
And
1.
they go into office on the in
Yeah,
January.
the inauguration
Right.
ceremony is December 13th, but they won't be in place until January.
Right.
Where is our meeting on that day?
It is virtual.
Our meeting is virtual?
Mhm. Read your email, Sujatha.
I mean, you know,
So
I
in terms
don't know
of,
the
in
branch
terms
out,
of
I don't know how to
this,
use them. I didn't do my homework, my MLS homework.
so the
also.
advertised, if the advertised budget is distributed, is presented in February, then we have February to inform people about advocating, right? That's what I needed this for, is when they do that, we do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
this could,
the county executive will release his advertised budget on February 20th this year.
February
And
what?
February 20th.
Okay,
So typically, at the end of the budget presentation, which the county executive provides to the board of supervisors, many of the supervisors will then, during their discussion, announce when their magisterial budget town halls will be. Some of them might be the following week, the last week in February. Many of them will fall in the month of March. They typically publish like a little chart on the budget page that Parker put in the chat for you all. And I typically email that around to you all as well, just so you have it handy. So if you are looking at forwarding both an updated version of your timeline as well as any other advocacy materials, you could include the chart that talks about when the different magisterial town halls will be, as well as
Oh,
when
good
some
idea.
open for the county public budget hearings, which are middle of April.
so the February 20th is Saturday. No, that's
Probably a Tuesday.
No, it's not, it's Tuesday. So our meeting is the 14th, so we should be ready on the 14th. to tell
Valentine's
trust
Day.
members, right? Back that up. And then I think last year we put in links to the different magisterial districts so that people could find out for sure when their town hall meetings were, because some hadn't announced it or whatever. But then if we do that again, then that would be really good. So I'm wondering, so I think we're good with the budget timeline. And then my next question is, should we do a similar kind of format for our ask? You know, like putting it in more into a graphics kind of thing to the advocates. Although we haven't decided on our ask yet, but I think it's going to be very similar to what it has been. If that seems right to people, is the, well, yeah, I don't know, Jessica, what I had written a note to myself, well, even though we have, you know, pretty bad news about the budget, it doesn't mean that we still can't advocate for
Absolutely. You
budget.
all, part of your authorizations as a library board is to advocate regardless of the situation with the county's budget. And while I do not think that the library's portion of any kind of agency cuts is going to be maybe as voluminous as was originally anticipated with the 7% reduction exercise, any kind of cuts would be detrimental. And while a flat budget was submitted, you all did still include, if in some instance there is additional funding or support, you were still requesting additional dollars be permanently added to the baseline for the book budget, in line with the fact that they gave $250,000 during their third quarter review as one-time dollars. So I do think that there's still opportunities to advocate, and it would not be ill-seen to do so, even if the general county budget is not incredibly optimistic. Because it doesn't hurt to ask.
Right,
Does
and
not hurt to
I
ask.
don't know, in such a message, would it be good to, have wording like acknowledging the difficult financial times that we're going through, but linking that to that, how much more important than libraries are to their communities. For that reason, so that's like, we don't want to get called out for saying something. Right, like, I don't care what happens to other agencies, just give us more money. An acknowledgement of the situation and why it's important for us
Mm.
to. Well, I
There's
don't
an-
think we
there's
should
an
say
argument.
not to get cut, but
There's a clear argument to be made that investing in the book budget, especially if we make it in terms of that this is a resource that everyone, as we enter straightened times, that this is a resource that would allow people to weather these economic downturns, universal economic downturns in the
Mhm.
community, because they can always rely on the library, especially if we have outdated materials, that people are needing materials that are current in these difficult times, So
right,
it makes a very good argument that in times of trouble, investing in the public good is good, because everybody will need it because of all the cuts elsewhere.
And as you all start to develop more the talking points that you want to utilize and any informational requests that you have for staff in support of that, I think Fran and Suzanne can probably attest to the fact that as prior librarians and staff members, when we see down economies and we see recessions, the libraries are more heavily used because people have had to make hard choices about things that they're going to cut from their budgets. And they look to easily available resources that are widely trusted, like the library, to kind of pick up the slack in those areas. You see
And we
people
can
who are
use
trying to
COVID
reinvest in
times.
their job skills, who are trying to cut their cable budgets, who are using library internet, who are no longer able to pay for paid programs for their children. And the library is a really valuable asset in those times. So I think you could, if this is the message that you all are choosing to advocate around, you will have historical data around prior kind of county budget downturns leading to actual, economic recessions, and the type of utilization the library sees after that, and the impact it has.
You can even look at most recently during COVID times, how much our library was used and how much library was relied on by the entire community. Unprecedented asks in some areas, and all of this and the library staff rising to the occasion despite being understaffed. So,
Right.
There's
So,
a clear argument to be made that it's not even ancient times, it's recent times. We can say in all of these times, including this, everyone relied on our library. So,
right, and I know things that I've read about the importance of libraries as community centers, and alleviating the possibility of isolation and even death of older people who have no place to go. The library is a place to go, and I think along with in linking into the collection of newspapers that older people still like to read, or magazines that they want to look at, and they can come to the library and do that. And they might not be able to do that, like what you're saying about cuts that they make in their individual budgets. And that's why I'm wondering if little box, am I fixating on little boxes, but rather than an outline, something that's a little more, these are things that are important to the to a library community, being able to come in, we're cold center, in the winter, we're air conditioned, the kind of social things, as well as the collection and the importance of that too. And Jessica, I don't want us to get out over the skis. That's right, over your skis, over my, whatever. In terms of what you'll keep us in line of what to ask.
Yeah, you all, I
Yes.
think you're fine and on the right track, and I think that phrase is accurate. The only comment I would make about whatever document you land on for this one, I can certainly help provide information and draft things for your consideration as needed. I don't know that I would be as comfortable having library marketing do the kind of visually appealing part of this, because that document is certainly more advocacy based than it is strictly informational. So,
Mhm.
something to keep in mind.
So when you're saying, Fran, when you're talking about boxes or whatever, like a visual something, you're talking about like these points in boxes, like the ways in which.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering, since we're sending this to our
our
networks,
advocates.
right? I feel like a list is just as easily accessed as the boxes, right? Because we don't really need it to be visually appealing. We need it to be easily functional list for people who are trying to pull a bunch of ideas together to put together,
That's a good point.
to add to personalize a letter that we
Yeah.
have crafted. We have a skeleton letter anyway, right?
Mhm.
And these are the issues that feel free to put them in here. And like, since at least right now, my network is my friends, right? I would write one up that has all of them in there and say, like, this is how I made that argument. You know what I mean? Feel free to cut and paste, change things around and make the same argument, because it's a legitimate argument that in an economic downturn, people rely on their library
Yeah, yeah,
for all the things that you just said.
yeah,
And so actually the argument is even stronger now than, at all times we should be funding our library. And if we were flush, yes, we'd be funding our library, we'd be advocating for spending some of that on the public good. However, when it's down, you really need to make sure you prioritize the public good.
So we should then, if we are able to have a meeting in early February, I guess, to have a list to review at that meeting and finalize, is that?
Do we want to meet right after the board presents the budget? So that we can have more accurate facts, or we know what facts we need to use? If they're presenting on the 20th, I'm thinking anytime after that.
The 20th of February?
Yeah.
20th of-
Would you want?
Isn't that the date we
I-
said the board is presenting the budget?
It is.
Yes.
Um,
I'd
I
rather
think
do
Fran
it
and I
sooner.
had talked previously, and Fran, apologies if I'm misremembering this, about having this group meet sometime in January
Okay,
after the holidays, before the budget is released, in case you all need additional time to kind of plan what your advocacy talking points are going to be, how you want to convey them, and kind of flesh out things that you can just pop numbers into after, like the library may take a
Okay.
cut of X amount. That would also give you time to review and approve whichever version of the kind of graphically updated budget timeline that you want.
Yeah.
All
That's-
right.
That's my thinking too.
And I also see that for yesterday's agenda of the budget committee, it says that the next budget committee meeting, which will be a joint meeting with the schools, is scheduled for February 27th. I guess a week after they release. I've never seen those, so I don't know what's discussed in that budget committee meeting ahead of like the markup, but maybe there's something interesting to do between the release of the budget and the budget committee meeting that we would want to have our advocates get in touch with the supervisors. I don't know.
I'm not sure. What, are you saying meet later or meet sooner?
Well, no, I'm just saying I mean, does that budget committee meeting, is that an opportunity to advocate, to make sure that they understand kind of what the needs of the library are and what we want our advocates to, or is it just a committee meeting and they say, oh, the draft budget was released last week and we're gonna look at it again in April. I just don't know what that meeting, what they do
can't
in that
either.
meeting.
I can shed a little light on that. My apologies, I was muted and didn't realize I was muted. So the board of supervisors will have additional budget committee meetings just for themselves between now and the February 27th meeting, which is their next joint one with the school board. The joint meeting with the school board is to discuss both the draft budgets that were released by the school superintendent, who releases theirs in January, and then the county executive, who releases a week before, and the tax rate. So what I have found typically happens at this particular style of meeting is that it is a lot of discussion about their priorities and what, if anything, they might hope to advocate to each other about. So, you know, the school board and the board of supervisors only meet jointly 2 or maybe 3 times a year. And it is often kind of internal advocacy back and forth. There is no public comment at that particular meeting. So while you all could certainly watch and you could even be there in person and participate, I don't know that there would be a lot of opportunity at that particular meeting, or maybe even in advance of that meeting.
I guess my thought process is if we wait too late in the game to say that the budget that's being proposed is not sufficient to cover the needs of the library, then everything is kind of baked. And
Yeah,
we then don't have that, like if we wait until sometime in April.
Yeah.
But if shortly after the budget is released, we have our advocates group sending emails, talking to their supervisor ahead of some of the first meetings so they can potentially make adjustments, then that might be useful.
And my apologies, I
agree.
was trying not to, I may have been too oblique in that as I attempted not to misspeak on something. So the meeting on the 27th, it is not itself an opportunity to advocate because it is fully
Right.
taken up by those conversations between the 2 boards. And a week later, usually, is when the Board of Supervisors is going to discuss what the cap they're willing to set is on the property tax rate. So that meeting, the late February one between the 2 boards, is often the school board advocating for a higher tax rate in order to fund both school board priorities and county priorities. And the Board of Supervisors trying to find the right balance between the needs of both the schools and county functionality, and if they are looking at increasing a tax rate, how that's going to affect homeowners and taxpayers. So that one meeting is often pretty well jammed out. I was not trying to say, my apologies, that you all shouldn't advocate between February 20th and the 27th. You can certainly do that. And it makes sense to kind of rally your advocates, the earlier the better, once you know what the library's portion of the budget is going to look like. My main comment on that was if you were hoping to advocate to both the school board and the board of supervisors at that meeting on the 27th, that one is, they got a lot of other stuff going on with that one. But yeah, the earlier the better for sure.
I should have paid more attention to the video.
It was the pens, the way they moved, it was really distracting.
they were writing everything down.
They're very diligent in their writing. Yeah,
That's right.
I mean, so you all received an update earlier today about what the revenue projections were looking like. And the county is currently anticipating a deficit for both schools and the county collectively of about $285 million, which is no small chunk of change, even with the county's budget being as large as it is. And included in that update was, you know, every agency was asked to present a 7% reduction package just in case. And they wanted to have kind of a wide slate of options to review. And if all of those 7% had been taken from all county agencies, that would have equated to about 110 million. The schools, as far as I am aware, have not yet asked any of their divisions or groups to do a similar exercise with reductions. This was just on the county side, but I'm not as aware of what they're doing internally. But the budget that they kind of shared as part of that revenue projection did not include any decreases the way that the counties did. The county right now is only conservatively estimating 20 million out of those 110 million. So that's much less than what could have been taken, and is still just a very loose projection. So even that just decreases it to a deficit of 265 million that still needs to be rectified somehow. And that is either a decrease in spending or an increase in revenue. Just kind of the 2 basics. I did not include in your update, but which you can see in either the slides or the video, and I'll talk about it at your full board meeting on the 13th, is the county is now engaging with 2 collective bargaining units. Police and fire and emergency services. And they have 2 draft collective bargaining agreements, which would be effective no later than July 1st of 2024. And those agreements would make for some mandatory portions of that block of money that is contributing to that deficit right now. And if those 2 collective bargaining agreements are affirmed, which I would personally be surprised if they're not, then it also has implications for pay and benefits and other things for non-covered employees and the general government units. So there's a lot of chunks of money that they're going to have to find a way to fund that are required, like the money for Metro and the money for employee compensation. So they're gonna have some interesting conversations ahead, and the earlier you all are ready with your advocates to kind of pitch your case, you're right, the better.
Okay, so we need to be ready, well, maybe by the board meeting, our board meeting, the 14th, to announce either that this letter will be coming to you to personalize and send to your advocates. Right? Does that make sense? What I'm saying, in terms of timing, figure it out. Because if they get them by the RMI off base, but it seems like if the trustees are informed by at the 14th or before, but the 14th, and the letters are ready to go out, then we'll be in good shape in terms of informing people to advocate for us. And those will be the letters that will include our appreciation of the difficult times, our rationale to continue funding level or increase. I'm not sure how you would do that. And the things that are even more necessary during a downturn in economic times. Right? Is that good? And so we'll be depending on Jessica to sort of put that list together, and then I don't know, so like cobble it together with the letter we used last time, perhaps, because it won't be that different. You think so? Is that okay with you, Jessica?
Yeah, that's just a continuation. I'm just acting as your dictation units. I'm happy to do that part for you. Staff are not going to be personally advocating, but we can certainly help you kind of draft that for your edits and setting them up.
Right. Okay, that's good. And so then the issue with meeting is like I'm gonna be out of town from December 27th until January 14th. So we could meet sometime in the end of January. I mean, yeah, to get that ready for the February distribution. So then, and this is one of the last items, so then I think we depend on Jessica to send out possible dating meeting dates for meetings.
I'd be
So
happy
we
to.
can
Does
date.
does anyone else have any blocks of time you'll be out of the area between mid-January and mid-February?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay.
And on January 16th, I am meeting with the Kingstown Friends in the evening. So
You said I will be gone in mid-January. No, mid-February, we're talking about that, right?
well, scheduling our meeting to prepare things for mid-February.
when will you be out between
will be
mid-January and
gone.
mid-February?
I will be gone from January 3rd. Hold on. I'll be gone from January 3rd for approximately 10. I should know exactly, but I don't. January 3rd, I'm leaving, and I can't remember when I'm coming back. So I have to, can I email you? I'll email you.
Yes, I will send an email to everyone with some options, and you can just let me know what works and what doesn't. That's
Thank
totally
you.
fine.
I should have this in my calendar. It's already December, pretty much. Sorry,
All fine.
guys.
Okay, so I think we're good on the document, review timeline document, and then the idea of preparing a similar document or a list, not a similar document, for our proposed asks. Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next item on the budget. I mean, on the agenda. Did that cover? Okay, we're good. Friends of the Library Advocacy Update. And I've been thinking about this, and here's what I wrote down. Express to the friends our gratitude for everything they always do, because they're terrific. And so I want to hear what those of you who have had a chance to meet with other friends groups. My impression is, from my friends groups, they're happy to fund something with money. And I think that their membership, certain of their membership would be willing to write advocacy mails and letters or letters. I don't know how many would want to go into, and speak for us. That would be up to them to decide. But having a table at the book sale or some of the other ideas that we floated by, they really didn't resonate with the friends groups that I talked to, and that's fine, because the meeting with them, part of it was listening and finding out what do they want to do, because they work really hard with what they're doing. And so the appreciation of that work, and then and I know especially George Friends is like, we'll be glad to pay for something. And then offer the opportunity for the email, which is really easy to do because we send everything they need. So in a nutshell, that's my impression, and I would like to hear if other people have a similar impression. Let's see, what was else? Oh, and if they wanted to fund something for their branch or for the system, I don't think we've asked them that. And what was the other? And I do have a list of things. But anyway, as a general impression for focusing on future meetings with the friends. Jessica, if you have any thoughts on that, and anybody else too.
Gratitude's always nice, and many of them are happy to fund things. Some of the groups have been a little hard to pin down, like Parker and I have been trying to meet with the Patrick Henry Friends for a little bit of time now, and they are just such a busy, active group. Some of them are only in the area for a little bit of time. Some of them are, back and forth from other states. So we had originally planned to meet with them this Friday.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's been punted a little bit, either further down into this month or into January or virtual. So that one's been kind of iffy-andy. But I think you're right. I think some of the friends, based on the maybe age or ability or interest, they're not going to be able to come to like the big county public budget hearings. They might be able to make the magisterial ones though. So maybe we could make sure that we've got more specific requests for them, like when we've got dates for those magisterial ones, because they're already in that area.
That's a good point.
And if you all, again, wanted to prepare talking points for them like we did last year for the advocates, I'm sure that would go a long way as well. And then if you wanted to ask them for money for things like swag, like, fans or hats or shirts or something, they did appear interested, at least a couple of them, in helping to support that. So if you wanted to do that, that's an ask that you might want to put on your agenda for your TBD January or early February meetings. So you've got that prepped and can send it out before the dates are selected for March.
Anybody else? Suzanne, have you had a chance with Fairfax City Friends?
Not since I met with them. But, the day we met was the day we had our election of new officers, and it was pretty discombobulated. So I'm going to sit down with the new president and talk to her. And, they're a little bit different about advocating in terms of many of them are city residents and, don't have a specific supervisor to go to. So they're probably less inclined than, people from other branches. But I do hit up on the people who live in the county and make a real point of it to let them know.
Parker or Sujatha, anything to add? Parker or Sujatha, anything to add to the discussion about your friends groups, if you've had a chance?
I haven't met with my friends group, so I don't have anything to add about the friends group.
And I
And
haven't met
Fran-
with my small group, the small branches. I just concentrated on George and anyway. Go
And
ahead.
I was just gonna say that you met with the Reston Friends group, so. And like Jessica said, we're just trying to get on the agenda or just have a meeting with the Patrick Henry folks. Just haven't had a chance.
Sujatha, is there a specific one of your groups that I can help coordinate a meeting with?
I would, whichever one you think would be the most, the best one to start with.
Okay.
I just haven't built a relationship with them
Fine.
and,
The groups in your area, I think maybe the easiest ones would either be Great Falls or Herndon. They are both, have more regular meeting schedules. They have been really supportive in the past of other things going on. We haven't talked to them about other things recently, so I'd be happy to reach out on our behalf to both of them.
thank you, I
Yeah,
appreciate
of
it.
course.
Yeah, I think there's still plenty of time because, yeah, I just did it. But okay, that's good. And then, as I said, well, I didn't say, but, at the last board meeting, the woman who comes to our board meetings and is, I always thought she was simply representing the League of Women Voters. I didn't know that she was also the president of the Kingstown Friends. And she asked me if, someone could come. She didn't ask me specifically, but I said I'd be glad to. And then the idea of,
Oh, let's turn it down already. Sorry about that.
we had talked about other organizations, and so I did sort of open the door to her about the League of Women Voters, because that would be great if we had some of those of the league people to advocate to for us. So that's
You know,
great.
that reminds me that I did have a conversation. This totally applies. I did have a conversation with before they reorged the Great Falls Civic Association.
Mhm.
They were trying to I did have a conversation with somebody on the Great Falls Civic Association board. And there were some concerns that they expressed just, just in general about some of the items in the collection, which made me, a little
Wary.
wary about,
Yeah.
like the idea of letters with caveats and stuff, instead of like soliciting letters with caveats. It's one thing, anybody can write to their board and they can say
Mhm.
anything they want to do. They can say anything that they want, certainly, but it's not a message that I want associated with my opinions anyway, or my feelings about the library. So there's
Okay.
that.
All right. So Jessica, I don't know if you want to come with me to the Kingstown, or I could invite Gary because it's one of his branches. And I
Yeah.
know I'll be traveling for 2 days.
I'd be happy to.
Right.
What time is it on the 16th?
It's in the evening. It's at 7. which is-
I think Gary would appreciate the invite as well, even if he's
I will.
unable to attend, just because it's in his district.
Okay, I'll do that. Anything else on the Friends, or ready to move on to the foundation? Okay, so the foundation board meeting is December 12th, and I'm gonna go and express gratitude for their advocacy. The way that we work that is I have a contact person, Johnny, I forgot his last name. You probably know, because you remember everything. Johnny.
McPherson.
Johnny McPherson, thank you. So I send, just like, I send him the information, then he communicates it to the foundation directors who have signed on to be advocates. So I think that not everyone did, and I don't know whether that was just because there was whatever. But anyway, so I'm gonna thank them and then let them know that we'll be having new talking points and the importance of the library. I'm not gonna take a lot of time because those board meetings can be really long, and I don't want to contribute to that. And I'm not going to give them bad news about the budget because I know that'll be up to lucky Jessica.
I do get them on that one, yes.
And I don't know whether to say, would the foundation like to pay for something? What do you think? Or just their advocacy? Any thoughts on that, Jessica?
Oh, me, sorry. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you're talking to the committee or to me as staff.
Well, anyone else, any thoughts too, but.
Yeah, the foundation has been willing to financially support advocacy efforts in the past. Some
Yeah.
of you may recall that when we had the last bond, they had been the entity that funded the yard signs and other things, since, the library board was not able to advocate on that particular item since it's voter driven, but the foundation certainly could. And so they they typically hold a very small pot of money for irregular requests. You could certainly ask, but you may also want to kind of hold them in your back pocket if you need it for something else later, if you think you have friends groups who could help fund alternatively for the swag.
Okay, well, I think, yeah, I won't touch that. Because I don't know what I would ask them to fund. We haven't come up with something like, so that's that on the foundation. I was gonna give them the budget timeline. What do you think about handing that out to them? Or giving it to Lisa to include?
Couldn't
I think it
hurt.
would- I think it would be good, but. So there's another assignment for Jessica. Just like, load her out. Okay, next meeting. So we've already covered that. You see? We're so good. Other committee items, I should wait for that to see if anybody has anything. Have you recruited any more advocates, you guys? Come on, get out there.
Not recently, but we'll get on that.
Look at the disapproving look on Fran's face.
Yeah, come on.
I actually think that I have lots. I just haven't like, you know, maybe
Formalized
sign
it.
on the dotted line.
Close the deal.
Well, that's okay. if
Close
you're
the deal.
more
I mean, I
informal,
think
yeah.
the deal. I think the deal is closed. They just may not know that the deal is closed.
You have a very strong network, Sujata. We
You know, I
believe.
do. I
Yeah.
do. I do.
Sujata, I think you could just stand in that little vestibule at Harris Teeter
There's
and,
Peter.
and connect with people like you and I did. Yeah.
Exactly. On the eve of Thanksgiving or something, there was Parker in the grocery store.
Sujata
Okay.
was fresh off an airplane.
Oh my
Uh-huh.
God. I still feel fresh off the airplane.
Oh.
That's what happens when you're fresh off the airplane and then you have to host Thanksgiving. Like,
I couldn't believe
Brutal.
your schedule when you said that. It's like, oh my God.
it's just like, you know, it's the eldest daughter. There's an article. It was like in the New York Times, the Atlantic or something about eldest daughter syndrome.
I'm one.
Oh, it's just like, really? It's all got to be me? Everybody?
My wife is one. I totally get what you're saying.
It's
I'm the
crazy.
oldest too.
And I have these cousins who are 20 years younger than me. When I was 20 years younger than me, I had 2 small children and still had to host the Thanksgiving, clean up after the Thanksgiving, pack up everybody's food up. These cousins, I'm just like, hello, how come you think you don't have to do this? Why is everybody sitting around?
Well, you know what happens, Sujata? You get older and your kids decide you're too old and feeble to put on Thanksgiving anymore and they're
Yay.
going to take over.
That's
And
good.
that's what's happened to me.
I think
And you
that's
know what?
good.
It's kind of a relief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I am telling you what, that's what happened to me. That's why I'm supposed to host Thanksgiving, right? Because everybody's old and feeble, so I had to host Thanksgiving. I'm waiting for my children to see me as old and feeble. They do not see me as old and feeble yet, and they're just sitting there being useless. Like, did I raise you this poorly? I don't even know how I did this. How is everybody sitting around but me?
You need to assign tasks to everyone,
Everyone has been
including
assigned
your
tasks, Suzanne.
children.
Everyone has been assigned tasks. Suzanne.
Are we
These are
still
such big
recording?
kids.
Parker, yeah.
Oh.
Are we still
Okay,
recording?
so
Yes.
is there any more business to be discussed?
Is there
Do we
anything that
have
we
a
need? Is
Oh,
there anything, Fran, that we need to bring back up from our outreach committee meeting? We we need to discuss in the fan meeting in the context of fan, or do we not need to do that, according to you?
What?
For example, what? So, for example,
What?
we had thrown about the idea that with regard to collecting information,
Oh, right.
that
okay.
would feed, that would be informative to the board, really to increase our funding, to have a good bang for your buck, meaning we had talked about the various things that we were thinking about doing for outreach, whether a survey was the right thing to do considering the cost and what we might, the ROI, we don't know whether it would be a particularly good return on investment. I think some of those same arguments that are different perhaps than the arguments that we were making here that Jessica was talking about regarding when there's an economic downturn, people rely more on their libraries. That's a different argument than the ones we were making regarding collecting information in different formats and ways to get to wheedle out information from our community about that would inform letters, arguments, whatever that we have with our supervisors about increasing funding. Is that something that we need to think about within the context of FAN, or is that something we can just think about in the context of the trustees? You're looking at me like I'm making no sense. Am
No, I
making-
think the information that you are looking for will be valuable to the fan. You know,
Will
the
be.
fan. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and I took some of that talking about, you know, people coming into the library to read things that are there, looking at books. And I think when the meeting that we sort of summarized that it's not just homework support, which I have a tendency to dwell on. It's not just homework, it's homework and support. It's that the age of our collection suffers because we need to respond to the demand for popular items with the money that we have, and then we don't have enough money then to take care of the entire collection, if I've summarized that properly.
And that would
these
be
are-
a good talking point.
Yeah. I
So
think
those same arguments, I think we can just put in multiple delivery systems.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll be,
I just wanted to bring it up during
I
this
worried
meeting.
that I sort of hijacked things yesterday at that meeting, but I don't think I did.
You never are hijacking things.
I'm not
always
that
glad
powerful. I'm not
for
that
everybody
powerful.
else's input, but
I was the
wanted-
baby. I was the baby of, you know, with two older brothers until I was 13, and then the surprise baby came along and displaced me from being daddy's girl. Hello. So
So
I have other
Duh.
issues.
you got issues.
Hey,
Uh,
Fran, I got displaced when I was 17 months old by my sister, so
Yeah, but when you're 13,
you know who
years
was
old.
never displaced? Me.
You.
Still daddy's girl.
That's right,
And
that's right.
therefore,
Friend, would you like to
Therefore-
adjourn the meeting before?
oh
Okay,
yes.
any
Yes.
more
You
business
that?
items? I think we wrapped it up. And does anybody want to call for adjournment?
yes.
I
Yes.
So moved.
second that.
Thank you, everything.